Hi, how you doing? Justin Sandercoe here. Welcome to lesson 2 of the guitar pickup for BBC Radio 2. And this lesson we're going to be checking out how to play some minor chords and how to add in some up strums into your rhythm guitar playing. So the first thing I want to talk about in this lesson is what to look for when you buy yourself a guitar. It can be kind of daunting when you go into a music shop. There's so many different things. So the first thing that I would recommend is that you find one that you really like, that you feel a connection with. Because the guitar you're holding, it's how you're going to be making your sound. You want something that both looks nice and feels nice. So when you go to a store, the first thing you want to do is find what you feel you're attracted to. Now, if you can, one of the best things to do is to take along somebody who knows what they're doing, somebody who's played guitar a little bit, who can check the action, that is how far the strings are away from the fingerboard, and can make sure that the guitar's kind of set up nicely. Now, if you don't have someone like that, what you want to do when you first get your guitar is just to try playing some of your chords and feel how easy it is to press the strings down. And if it's really difficult, that might not be the best guitar to start off with. It might be a great guitar later, but to start off with, you want one that feels really easy to play, when you're putting your fingers on the strings, it just feels nice. So you probably want to have a couple of your chords kind of under your fingers first of all, so you can make sure that it feels good when you go in there to play it. Other things that you should pick up while you're in the store are definitely, first one, plectrums. The sock monster plays guitar, in case you didn't know, and he steals picks all the time. So you need to have a few. Don't just have one pick. Go and get yourself 10 picks. They're not expensive to buy. So get yourself a bunch of picks. The other thing that you really important that you have is a spare set of strings, because strings do break from time to time, and what you don't want to do is break a string and not be able to practice for ages because you don't have time to go to the store. Another really useful tool that you might like to get yourself is a capo, or capo if you're in America. That looks like this. Now these are really useful things for changing the key of things that you're playing, especially if you want to play along with records and you're not sure about all of those chords. Sometimes you can use a capo to change the key of the tune. It's also great for girl singers that want to sing male vocal songs, to be able to put a capo on and sing it a little bit higher. So very, very useful thing would be a capo. Other things that you might like to consider that aren't maybe essential but are pretty useful. One is a music stand. Really common kind of problem is people put sheet music on the bed beside them and then turn their spine around. It's really bad for your spine and for your neck. So having a music stand so you can put any sheet music in front of you is a really good thing. A guitar stand. Leaning guitars up on the side of a table and watching them slip over and break is a really bad experience. So getting a guitar stand is a pretty useful thing as well. And if you're playing electric guitar, you probably want to get yourself a guitar strap too. So I mentioned a capo a little bit earlier, and it's really important if you buy one that you learn how to put it on and where to put it on the guitar neck. So let's say that you're learning a song and it says that the capo should be placed at the 3rd fret. So we already know that we got 1, 2, 3. Quite often you'll have a dot in the 3rd fret as well. It will be your first kind of little marker. When you put the capo on, you want to try and get it right up next to the fret there. If you put it in the middle, it can sometimes give you kind of tuning issues. So instead of putting it like right at the back or in the middle, try and get it right up next to the fret if you can. Place it down, let go, make sure that it's nicely lined up. And before you start playing, you want to make sure that all of the strings are ringing out properly with the capo, because sometimes you need to kind of rock them backwards and forwards a little bit. So put it on and then check. Yeah, I'm happy with that. So the capo functions exactly the same as the nut did. And you'll find now that we've got the capo on at the 3rd fret, we can play all of the same chords that we used before, whereas we were first of all right down the end of the neck there. Now we've got to place the chords in front of the capo, and we can use our regular E shape, the A shape, and the D chord. Exactly the same chord shapes, they just sound a little bit higher. Before we go any further, let's hear from a guitar player who's made it to the top. Remember, they were once in your shoes too.
Guitar itself came into my life when I was in junior high school. This band was going to play, a bass player and a drummer that were like seniors of the school. And just by chance, the first thing he played was... And it was just so loud and like in my face that it made all the hair on my prepubescent body stand on end. And from then on, I was like, I'm gonna do that. So it was a long time ago. I was like, playing guitar for 30-something years and you're still learning something every day. That's the good thing about it. If you want to be a good kind of guitar player, you want to learn all the different ways you can play the same chord. Like you can play a D minor here in the first position, you can play it here, and then you can also leave the E open. That makes it really sad.
In this lesson, we're going to be learning 3 new chords, and they're the 3 minor chords of E minor, A minor, and D minor. Now, minor chords are no more difficult to play than major chords. In fact, they're a little bit easier. They just sound a little bit sadder. So to start off with, we're going to check out an E minor chord. So if we start with a regular E chord that we learned in the last lesson and lift off your first finger, you've got an E minor chord. It's as simple as that. So again, the big deal is to check the strings and make sure that they're all ringing out. So give it a quick strum, play the notes one at a time, and then give it another strum. It's really important that you do that, particularly with the minor chord, because often you'll find that the 3rd string is the one that's muted by the 3rd finger. So then you get, and that chord isn't either major or minor because the note that changes between the major and minor is missing. So it's really important that you get that 3rd finger right on the tip of it there so you can hear that open 3rd string nice and clearly. Now the next chord we're going to look at is the A minor chord. Now A minor chord looks the same as an E chord, but everything's moved down toward the grounder string. So if you start off with your E chord and then move all of your fingers down one string, we end up with the A minor chord. Now it'd be really helpful here to look at the chord diagrams that we've got enclosed in the PDF download there for you. So this one, we don't play the thicker string, also that's important. So we're going to leave the thicker string, the 6th string alone. We'd start from the 5th string and do a strum, pick the notes out one at a time, and then strum again. Now to get to D minor chord, interesting little way around this one, is to take your A minor chord and move it down a string again, and then try and push your 3rd finger up to the next fret. Okay, some people find this a little bit tricky to get the 3rd finger up there. It is a little bit more stretchy than the other chords that we've looked at before. That's your kind of payoff. E minor is a little easier, D minor is a little bit harder. So start off with the A minor, slide that 3rd finger up, move them all up as close to the frets as you can. Now on the D minor chord, we don't play the thickest 2 strings. Remember, for the regular D as well, we didn't play the thickest 2 strings. So we'd start on the 4th string, we do a strum, pick the notes out one at a time. Now again, very often the 3rd finger is the culprit. If it lays a little bit flat, you'll find that that thinner string is a bit muted. So make sure again that you're trying to use your fingertips to get all of those chords sounding real sweet. In the last lesson, we looked at the idea of doing 1-minute chord changes in order to get your chord changes as fast as possible. And the same principles apply for these new chords as well. You probably don't want to be changing, say, from E to E minor, because that's a little bit simple. But what I'd recommend that you're doing today in your practice is picking the chords that you find the hardest to change between and doing that for 1 minute. So some of the common ones, like an E chord going to a D minor chord, is quite a difficult chord change. But therefore it's one of the best ones to be practicing, is getting that chord change as fast as you can, you know, and timing yourself for that minute. And different people seem to have different struggles with different chord changes. So what you want to be picking for your practice routine is whatever 5 chord changes you find the hardest and working on those the most.
The first song I ever played was Rocky Raccoon, I think it was actually, by the Beatles. It was weird little Beatles songs, you know, not the famous ones really. The ones that they had the least chords basically were the ones I was able to learn, you know, the ones that were just like C all the way through.
The next thing I want to talk about today is some rhythm guitar. Now last week we looked at the most basic kind of rhythm we could find, which was 4 down strums playing on each beat of the bar when we had 4 beats in the bar. So all down strums. We're going to use an E chord now, and we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now it's really, really simple, right? And that's all down strums. But hopefully the most observant of you will have noticed that in between each down strum, our hand is coming back up as well. And we can also strum with an up strum. Now the count that we had was 1, 2, 3, and 4. And when we add these subdivisions, or the up strums, we end up adding an and to our count. So the normal count would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if we looked at that, we'd have down on the beat and up strum on the and. And when you do an up strum, it's not normally all of the strings, it's just the thinnest few strings, but it's not very specific, so don't be worrying too much about which strings you're strumming on the up strum. As long as you get the first couple of strings, it'll sound pretty cool. So the whole bar would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and what we're trying to do here is get the hand moving consistently. So it's always moving down and up, a little bit like a pendulum. It doesn't stop moving, no matter what pattern it is that we're playing. And the pattern I'd like to teach you today is 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Down, down, up, down, up, down. So let's run through that really slowly. This is a really key pattern here because a lot of other patterns kind of are generated from this starting point. So again, we're on an E chord and we're going to strum down, down, up, down, up, down, 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 up, down, up, down. The count would be 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Now see if you can keep going. Play along with me if you can. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Now the key here is to keep that rhythm as consistent as you possibly can. If you really want to get good, what you want to do is try tapping your foot on the beat. So on the 1, 2, 3, and the 4, you'll tap your foot as well. You won't tap your foot on the upstrokes, just on the downstrokes. So you want to try and develop a relationship between your foot and the down strum. That can be a really key thing later on. Don't worry about it too much at these early stages, but it's something to think about. If you can try and get that foot going, it really will help you later on. So your practice routine for this week is up to 30 minutes. So what I would recommend is you doing 5 minutes on getting your chords sounding really sweet, doing the strum, picking out the notes individually, and strum again, trying to get every note in the chord sounding as crisp and as clear as you possibly can. Next up, you want to spend 5 minutes doing your 1-minute changes. So pick 5 chord changes that you're having difficulty with and work on them for 1 minute each, really trying to get those chord changes absolutely as fast as you can. Then you want to spend 5 minutes working on that rhythm pattern I told you. Just trying to play it nice and slowly, keeping that hand moving consistently is what you're looking for. It's a really big deal to try and get that happening automatically. Because when you're playing songs and you've got chords changing and other stuff to think about, the strumming hand has to function on its own. So the key for that one is just repetition. Then I'd recommend that you spend 5 minutes on last week's song and then 10 minutes on the new song, which we're going to check out shortly. Take care of yourselves. See you for more very soon. Bye-bye.